you're going to be creating your presence, right? And I would, it was really important for my students to understand this, because the whole point of what we're trying to get our kids to do is prepare them for their lives, right? And so I want them thinking about like their reality now, who they see themselves as, and then how do they want to represent themselves as they move forward. And I get them to Google themselves. And if you are home right now on your computer, and if you don't do this, because some people don't, I highly recommend that you get in the habit of Googling yourself here and there. So do that. Google yourself, take a second, pause this video if you're watching it later on, and Google yourself. And I want you to look at, what do you find, right? And this is what I'd ask the kids. Do you see here, I'm gonna stop share. Do you see something that you want to see? Is it something you created? Is it something somebody else created? Or is it something that doesn't even belong to you, that someone else has created that shares your name? Okay. And so I want you to think about that when you are, Googling yourself and finding, content or social media accounts, because in the end, like, you want to be in control of what's being said about yourself. And you can do that if you're using social media. I mean, obviously, if you're like John Smith, that's, totally different. And I get that. But like, there's ways around being able to kind of find your own voice. So not just my students, but my own children, when they were born, I bought their .coms. Like, I'm a crazy lunatic, I know. But the truth is, I know that that's going to be like prime real estate. Like, the truth is, it costs me like 2 Starbucks large lattes a year, like, in costs, and like, I hold on to that. Like, it's like I'm holding on to, the island of like Honolulu. Like, it is like such great real estate. And in the end, like, she may or may not use it, and that's fine. But if she wants it, it's there. Like, the reality is, like, our kids are going to be Googled. Like, and I tell this to parents, like, you're going to be Googled. Like, your son's going to be Googled when he applies to college. They're going to go, when you apply for a job, you're Googled. So ultimately, like it or not, like, what are you finding when you Google yourself? Because you want to be able to be in control of that. You want to be able to navigate what's being said. And so when you're able to leverage social media and create content that you control, you then are the driver of that story. And I think it's really important for kids to understand that and learn how to be the drivers of their own stories. And I would get them to create beautiful content. And in my class, I don't really care like about grades. Like, I could care less about a grade. Mediocrity in my class does not exist. Your work that you're going to turn in is going to be beautiful. And if that means that I'm going to turn it back to you 10 times and you're going to redo it until it is, then you're going to do that, because I don't accept things that are not beautiful, because I'm teaching them how to make it beautiful. I don't, like, the point of my class is not just to like turn stuff in. It's like, you're going to be Googled one day. This is part of your resume. This is going to go online. This is going to represent you. Is it good enough? And so when you get in that mindset about all the work that you're creating because you're publishing it or you're putting it out there, it changes the way you approach everything you do in your class. It was focused on quality. And so if that meant like we were going to redo things 1,000 times, we would work. And so like, think about that as a teacher. Like, if your kids are creating written products, well, why start a new written product if their old written product sucks? Have them rewrite it until they get to a place where it's really polished, and then have them publish it on something like, a Spark page, where they are publishing something that's beautiful that they want to share. When they're creating content, either the content's going to be negative, it's going to be neutral, or it's going to be positive, right? So negative content is the stuff that you don't want to share, that you would be embarrassed that your grandma would see it, like it'd be humiliating, or like you would not get a job because you publish something that's terrible. Neutral stuff is like, okay, so you're like doing a Pythagoras equation on like a whiteboard, like, all right, whatever, like you're writing an essay on a doc. And then positive stuff was like the stuff that they were putting out, the stuff that they were publishing, the stuff that they were putting in their portfolios, the stuff that they were publishing on Twitter, the stuff that they were putting on Instagram, the things that they would put on LinkedIn. Like that's the stuff that I wanted them to shine on, and that I was giving them opportunities to create. Are you providing opportunities for kids to create things that they would post, that they would want to share? Like, it's really important to think about that, because like, what are the kinds of things that we're asking kids to do? Are they meaningful things that like will warm their hearts? Do they have choice in what they're creating? Or are we just like doing stuff that because we've always done it and it's like this thing that we've always done, but it's kind of a lame, boring project, but we've always done it, so we do it anyways. Like, so ask yourself that, because you can change. Like, you don't have to do the same kind of stuff. So I would get them to really think about powerful demonstrations of learning. And one of the things that I got them to do was I got them to create these like stunning manifestos. And this is a great project. And I'm going to actually share the HyperDoc with you guys. I'm going to give it to Monique, and I'm going to actually give Monique like actually a presentation that you can put in that like breaks down the HyperDoc. Okay. And maybe I'll even do like a little video for it separate, but how you approach this, like how you approach the creation of this is really powerful, because you can get kids to create really powerful, beautiful demonstrations and get them to create things that really matter to them. So like, this is something that you could do at the beginning of the school year when kids are kind of getting to know each other and you're getting to know them, but also for them to think about like, the whole premise is like, who am I? Like, what do I desire? What are the things that are important to me? And so having them think about that is like incredible, but also using this as a way to leverage, creation is really powerful as well. So that was one of the things that I had them do. But like when they're creating these really beautiful demonstrations and they feel good about it and they want to share it, that's really powerful. And in order to do that, I spent a lot of time teaching my students about aesthetics and design principles. So one of the things that I teach my students is the importance of design principles and basic things like using visuals. This is from John Medina. He wrote the book Brain Rules. Research that 10% are going to remember what they read, versus like humans are 65% more likely to retain what they see visually than what they read. And understanding white space, like just like having too much on a slide or on a visual. Like when you just simplify your message and have like that white space, less is more piece, it's really powerful. And the thing is like, kids don't know this. Let's be real. Like you're going to have a kid, a fourth grader is going to put a slide together where they have like every single word and visual on the top right quadrant of the slide with the bottom 60% of it empty. And they're going to use a pink background and yellow font. Okay. That is the reality. And then like you get into high school and they put 50 bullet points. Okay. I'm exaggerating. 15 bullet points on a slide, like with just 1,000 words. And they don't understand this. Like this can be taught. Simplifying your visuals is so important. Adding visual breathing room, just like being able to simplify what you're writing and have space on your slides, so important. And then the final thing I show them is like how to use a grid to sort of level out slides and visuals when you're creating. And this is so powerful. When kids learn this, they can't unsee it. So when you just insert a grid and you take the visuals and you apply a grid and then reconfigure what you're trying to say, it's so powerful for design. And when like, so just like some of these kind of like very foundational skills, and this, like, look at this, there's like 5 things that I just showed you, but like completely transform the way that your visuals will look. This is simple stuff that you can teach. And and this is the lesson plan I use with my kids, and it's called Friends Don't Let Friends Use Word Art. And there's all these activities, go through it. If you're teaching creation literacy, this is such a great activity because I get the kids to play a game of hot or not, and they actually like deconstruct what good design looks like. And then they have to apply the skills and they create visuals. And so it's really, really, really powerful. So I teach them that. And then I teach them the importance of sharing their story. And I actually explicitly teach kids about like storytelling. We look at Pixar, we look at like different Oprah Winfrey and how she approaches the way that she tells stories, and like we deconstruct that. And so we'll do a lot of that in my class. And I think it's really important to also understand that our kids come to us with so many stories and so many life experiences. They are, they have a whole other life, and some of them come to us with really sad stories, and they come with happy stories. But ultimately, like, we have to recognize that, like, we need to celebrate their stories and give them time to share them. And I wanted to share a little story about my students, because I think it's worth understanding that I taught 8 miles from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which is where the shooting happened in February 14th, 2 years ago. I taught it at a school that was really, really close. And so I had a lot of kids come to our school after the shooting, kids that were like, could not make it anymore, or just couldn't take it, who were suffering from PTSD. So I taught a lot of kids that were, really dealing with a lot of trauma. And my students, even though they weren't there, had friends that died, part of the community. Like, this is their lives. And it's really, really, really intense where we are. And I'm sure for some of your kids, they might have similar experiences with family members that had experiences, with, I know that you're in, Las Vegas. Like, you also have, kids that probably are dealing with a lot of trauma themselves from events. Our kids definitely come to school, unfortunately, with like all these stories and all this baggage. And so a big part of my class was about self-discovery and, kind of coming to terms with yourself and your story. And so my kids spent a lot of time, reflecting on that. And so I got my kids to use Page as a platform for them to be able to share their stories. And the reason that it was so powerful was, well, here, I'll show you. Because when you provide kids with an opportunity to share their story, and then on top of that, you teach them how to tell their stories in a compelling way. And then on top of that, you give them opportunities to share them using tools that actually will give their stories, will do their stories justice. I don't know if that's the right word. And then on top of that, you provide them with a platform to share them. You are providing them with an opportunity to have a voice. And so this is Logan's story, and Logan has given me permission to share it. And it was so therapeutic for her to be able to write down her experience and to be able to create a visual story that she could kind of just like get out. It was like her place in the world. And you'll be able to look at this story, and she shares about her experience, at the school and what she went through, and just, talking about her journey, right? Like, when it was ready for her to move from one school to the other and why she did that and her support. And then she shares a video that she created in Spark, and just like a bit of a glimpse into like her as a kid. And it's really beautiful, because when you watch it, she's just such a regular 16-year-old like kid. And I watch this and I think like this is like my daughter, like this is your daughter, this is your child, these are our kids. But she's a kid that's like literally dealing with PTSD. Like, this is really beautiful. And this is her, like, she put "Here Comes the Sun" because like she's coming through, and like the way she sees it, like she has faith that she'll be fine. And she is so privileged in the way that she approaches. She's so much gratitude. And like at the end she writes, and this is like always gets me, but like, at the end of all this, I live today for those who can't, but most importantly, I live today. And so like, what a beautiful tribute to like how she sees herself, and how she views like the way that she has approached her journey through this. And being able to have the opportunity to share your stories, I think is so powerful. And it's not just about like your brand, but like to be able to have the skills to do this. I would start them, you know, just by creating an Adobe post. I'd get them to create a logo, and I get them to spend like they'd spend time like really going through like and understanding like how to create logos. I would take the post, their logo, and then I have them personalize their brand. And you're able to do this in Adobe Spark. They can create branded content with their name and their logo on all their work.